Okay, I'm going to do a quick review of schedules of reinforcement. Very quickly, let's review what the difference between reinforcement and punishment is. Reinforcement is a good thing. It's something that you want. It causes the behavior to increase. Punishment is a bad thing that can happen to a person, and it causes the behavior to decrease. So remember, you ask the question, is it good or bad? And that the answer to that will tell you if it's reinforcement or punishment. So when we're looking at schedules of reinforcement, continuous reinforcement means the behavior is reinforced every single time that it happens. So for example, every single time if I asked you to get out a piece of paper and write your name on it, if you did it every single time, I might give you a star on your paper. That would be continuous reinforcement. Another example is a rat is rewarded with a food pellet after every maze that he finishes. There are also partial reinforcement schedules, which is much more common than continuous reinforcement schedules. In partial reinforcement, the response is reinforced only part of the time, just like what it sounds like, not every single time. In this case, the behaviors are acquired more slowly, but the response is more resistant to extinction. What does that mean? It takes longer for the learning to happen, but the response is less likely to go away. That's what extinction means, to go away. So there are 4 different types that we're going to talk about. Remember that the word fixed means set or specific. The word variable means an unknown. The word ratio means number of times. The word interval means amount of time. So looking at a fixed ratio or FR schedule, remember fixed means set, ratio means number of times. So in a fixed ratio, the response is reinforced after a fixed or specified number of times. So for example, you earn a bonus after every 10 pairs of shoes that you sell. Okay, sorry, we had a brief pause there. Let's resume. So the fixed ratio schedule is after a specific number of responses, number of times you're rewarded with something. So after every 5 assignments that you complete, you get an extra credit point. That would be a fixed ratio schedule. After every 5 pages of your reading that you do, you take a 2-minute break. That's a fixed ratio schedule. And then there's another example. After completing 5 math problems, you get a break. Okay, then you have a variable ratio schedule. Remember, a variable ratio schedule means an unknown number of times. So you don't know how many times are in between when you're going to be rewarded for something. So the best example for this is a slot machine. After an unknown number of times, a person will be rewarded with money. So you might play a slot machine and win the first time and then not win again till the 50th time and then win after 3 more times after that. It's an unknown number of times before the person is rewarded. Another example would be a telemarketer. They have to call a certain number of times before they're rewarded. The same idea with like a door-to-door salesman, the number of doors that they go to before they are rewarded with a sale. Then you have what's called a fixed interval schedule. Remember, fixed means set or specified, and interval means amount of time. So in a fixed interval schedule, a response is rewarded after a specific amount of time. So for example, a paycheck, the person is paid after every 2 weeks. It's a set amount of time. Okay, after serving 1 hour of detention, you're allowed to go. So after that specific amount of time, then you're rewarded by getting to leave. The last one is a variable interval schedule. That's an unknown amount of time. So an unknown amount of time. The best example for these are going to be fishing or hunting, right? So after an unknown amount of time, you might catch a fish, and then it might be like 2 hours before you catch another one, and then you might catch another one in 5 minutes. Another example would be you have a pop quiz after an unknown amount of time. So you never know when it's going to happen. That is a variable interval schedule. Another example would be a self-employed person finishes jobs at different times and then is paid. So they might, for example, a lawyer might win a big case and they're paid after 2 months, and then they might not be paid again for 6 months, something like that. Okay, this is showing a graph of the schedules of reinforcement, the number of responses versus the time in minutes. So basically what you see happening is the variable interval, you're going to have a number of responses that's pretty steady over time. With the fixed interval, your number of responses is going to increase right before the time sort of ends. And then with fixed ratio and variable ratio, you have a lot more increased number of responses compared to time. So that's a review of the 4 different schedules of reinforcement.